Good afternoon and welcome to today's event. My name is Sri Raj Patel, Chair of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce and Vice President of Commercial Financial Services at RBC. Before we start, on behalf of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to acknowledge we're gathered today on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional land of the Ojibwe Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota and Dene Nations, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. Qaumajuq, meaning it is bright, it is lit, celebrates the light that flows into the new building connected to the WAG. On May 15, 2018, the Winnipeg Art Gallery broke ground on Qaumajuq, the Inuit Art Center, a new home for the largest public collection of contemporary Inuit art in the world. Though at the time, the building had yet to bear a new name. In October 2020, the Inuit Art Center was officially named Qaumajuq. Being the first in the world, the building will be a unique sharing space to experience art and artists in a new way through art with direct connections to the land, people, and culture of the North. Artists, Inuit, various partners, and community leaders collaborated to envision and create a vibrant gathering place. All are welcome and where everyone's stories are told, heard in the true spirit of reconciliation. Inspired by the beautiful northern landscapes, the architecture of Qaumajuq will be a legacy of inspire and engage generations to come. Sean, I see some of the notes about the audio, but I'll keep going. Inspired by the beautiful northern landscapes, the architecture of Qaumajuq will be a legacy to inspire and engage generations to come. Here at the Chamber, we are committed to continuing our journey of truth and reconciliation. February is Indigenous Storytelling Month, and we are excited to host a number of online events around Indigenous culture, including today's event. Later on in the program, I'll be sharing some of our upcoming programming for you to take in. So what does Qaumajuq mean for our city and you, the Winnipeg business community? Before we answer that question, I wanted to share how today will work. Today's virtual luncheon program is set up to reflect our usual in-person luncheon experience. This is your opportunity to connect with our community and other chamber members, all from your home or office. If you have any technical questions today, please contact any of our chamber staff by the chat on the right-hand side. They are listed as WCC Help under the attendee list. We would like to thank our chamber champions and chamber leaders who have stepped up and helped the chamber providing events and supports to our members. Thank you for everything you do. We encourage you to get on social media to join in on the conversation using the hashtag WCCBid. Okay, let's get us started. I'm extremely excited to be introducing to you our three panelists today who will share what Qaumajuq means for our city and our province, and how all businesses can embrace Qaumajuq as part of their truth and reconciliation journey. First, I would like to introduce you to Stephen Boris, Director and CEO of the Winnipeg Art Gallery. Stephen is overseeing the development of Qaumajuq and holds an adjunct professorship at the University of Winnipeg. He was awarded the Order of Manitoba in 2020, Tourism Winnipeg's Leader of the Year, and Downtown Winnipeg Biz Leadership in the Arts Award in 2015, and the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal 2012. He is a board of director of the Canadian Museums Association, co-chair, and the CMA Museum and Indigenous Issues Council, and an honorary member of the WAG National Indigenous Advisory. Welcome, Stephen. I'll now give you few moments just to address our audience.
Thank you, Raj. Hello to all of our chamber members and friends. It's really an honor, a privilege to be with you today to share with you what is a world-class moment happening in our city with the soon-to-be opening Qaumajuq, the first Inuit Art Center of its kind in the world, here for us to enjoy, to take in, to share. And so to have my colleagues Julie and Sandy with us to share different perspectives and voices. This is a great moment for Winnipeggers, for the indigenization of the WAG and how we respond to the TRC's calls to actions. Thank you for inviting us.
Great, thank you so much, Stephen. Next, we are honored to welcome Dr. Julie Neegum, Canada Research Chair in the Indigenous Arts Collaboration and Digital Media and Associate Professor in the Department of Art History at the University of Winnipeg. Julie is also the co-chair of WAG Indigenous
I
Advisory
don't know if
Circle.
you guys can hear
She's
me,
the
but I
inaugural
can't hear
Artistic
anybody.
Director 2021 for Nuit Blanche
So
in
welcome to the
Toronto.
internet.
She's also a collective member of GLAM, which works on curatorial activism, Indigenous methodologies, public art, digital technologies, and engagement with place. Julie's scholarship in curatorial and artistic
I
practice
see
has been featured
Stephen and
nationally
nobody else.
and internationally. Julie, I'm
Let's see.
hoping we're going to get your mic working here. You know, maybe I'll move on to Sandy. So our third panelist is Sandy Reilly, CEO of Richardson Financial Group Limited. Sandy co-founded the company in 2003. After 10 years as president, chief executive officer, and later chairman of the Investors Group Incorporated, he currently serves as director of Molson Coors Brewing Company and Canadian Western Bank. He is the chairman of board of the Northwest Company and the University of Winnipeg Foundation. In 2013, he was appointed as the member of the Order of Manitoba in recognition of his legacy of excellence in the worlds of business, sport, education, and community service. Welcome, Sandy. And did you want to say a few words?
Well, I'm delighted to be here. I thought I might not make it because of the technology, and I'm a Luddite, but I did. And I'm just delighted to be able to be here and talk about Qaumajuq and the wonderful work that has been done at the Winnipeg Art Gallery, and it's just one of the most exciting projects that I've been involved with in my years in Winnipeg. So this will be a fun event for me.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much. So I see that Julie might be encountering some challenges, but in the meantime, maybe I'll go in. And if it's okay, Stephen, if I can direct actually the first question to you. So maybe the first one, Stephen, why Winnipeg and why the Inuit Art Center?
Well, first of all, Winnipeggers, Manitobans deserve world-class institutions, and we have many of them. And Qaumajuq at the Winnipeg Art just adds to that list of what we can be proud of. But let's face it, the WAG, one of Canada's oldest civic art museums in the country, also has the world's largest collection of contemporary Inuit art. So in a way, it's a win-win for us. Being on Treaty 1, Métis homeland, bringing the Inuit in, it's an incredible opportunity for us to support understanding of the North, of Indigenous, of museums today. And it's really an opportunity for Winnipeggers to take a leadership role across the country in what citizens can do to make life better for everyone. And in this case, we're doing it through the power of art and culture.
Maybe I can add a little bit to that, Stephen. I look upon this wonderful facility as a bridge that we've created between the North and the South. It's obvious to all of us in Canada that the North is extraordinarily important to us for our long-term future. Sovereignty is an issue. There's a major, there's huge importance to supporting and working and becoming close to the Indigenous peoples of the North. And this gives us, this is creating an opportunity for them to have a home in the South, and a place in the South where they can tell their stories. And for us in the South to have a connecting point to those in the North who we want to connect with. And I have to tell you that on the first point about the home in the South, one of the most moving things that I've experienced is taking people from the North, Inuit people from the North, through the WAG's vaults, where all of the artwork of their communities was stored, and seeing the reaction they had when they saw works of art that were done by their aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers, being treated with such respect. I mean, it's a very emotional and very moving experience, and one which I think, when Stephen talks about reconciliation, we talk about connecting, and we talk about sort of building bridges. It's hugely important. And if you're interested in supporting the North, by supporting Qaumajuq, I can never pronounce it properly. Stephen just pronounced it in a different way than I did. So anyway, I'll try my best. The point is that for us, if you want to support the North, you're getting to support the culture and the families of the North. You're getting to support the economy of the North. You know, in my role as chairman of the Northwest Company, I get to go to the North periodically and see these communities. And I appreciate, how important this art is. It's important culturally, it's important for families, but it's also important economically. So there's so many ways that we can help the North and show a real solidarity connection with the Inuit people, and that's what I think we're doing here.
Excellent, love it. I think Julie's still getting set up here, but Sandy, I was going to direct this question to both you and Julie, but you kind of touched a little bit upon it. But what excites you the most about Qaumajuq being in Winnipeg, Manitoba in particular?
Well, I think if you look at the north of Canada, people come from the north. They go through 3 gateway cities: Edmonton, Montreal, Ottawa, and Winnipeg. And we should be the gateway to the north. And if you think about Winnipeg, and you think about some of the attributes we have in the city, we have the Journey to Churchill, which shows the natural habitat of the north, and of the polar bears and the muskox and the wolves and things of that nature. So you come to Winnipeg, if you're going to go north to Churchill and beyond to see the north, you come to Winnipeg and you can go and see that at the Assiniboine Park Conservancy. Then you can get in your car and come down to the wagon and see at Qaumajuq. You can see how the indigenous people of the north connect to that natural habitat, and how they viewed it culturally and economically and just in terms of living. Then you can go from there down to the Manitoba Museum, and you can see the Hudson's Bay collection, which really describes what happened when there was first contact between the indigenous peoples of Canada in the north and Europeans. And then you can go to the Museum of Human Rights, and you can see what's happened since then and what is happening. That's a remarkable panoply of assets that can describe for you what the North is all about, and you can't get that anywhere else in the world. Those are every single one of those things I just listed is world class and unique, and so it becomes a huge part of our tourism kind of arsenal to have these assets. And it's also a huge opportunity for us to educate our young people and young people from across Canada, because you really see the whole story of Canada and the relationship between a significant part of our indigenous population played out in those 4 institutions. So I think it's really exciting what we now have in this community.
Definitely. Thanks so much. Maybe I'll direct this question with you and Stephen. Stephen, if you don't mind, want to start us off. But for those who don't know anything about Qaumajuq, can you please tell them why should Winnipeggers care about having a beautiful asset here in our community, and what will it mean for them?
Well, I would just build on everything Sandy has just shared with us. And that's the first reason, that we are leaders in education and culture and the economy and innovation in the north as gateways to the west, to the north. Those are things that we can be incredibly proud of. But also to have in Winnipeg a collection of objects which are now total close to 14,000 works. And I'm talking carvings, prints, drawings, textiles, new media work here in Winnipeg, the largest of its kind, with the most outstanding exhibition and program record that we have it here to share, that Qaumajuq, and Sandy, there are so many ways to pronounce it, you don't have to worry about that. Even as if you go across the Inunangad, Inuit pronounce it differently. But if you think of how art is able to connect us to people, to understanding, work through reconciliation, connect us to the north, to look at different economies, ways of being. We are incredibly fortunate in our city. Our children are very fortunate with the type of education they can get through the arts. I think of our post-secondary institutions, how we build on research for the North, sovereignty, sustainability, climate change. All of these ideas and sectors can actually look to the arts for an incredible depth of information and imagery. And the WAG will be just building on that. So to Winnipeggers, as another world-class piece of architecture goes up in our city, which is wonderful. If you think of the CMHR, one of the most recent buildings to go up, not only is it a great building, it's incredibly accessible, transparent, open to all. It gives people a place to gather, to have fun, to relax, to learn, to inspire. It's probably one of the first places people want to bring friends and neighbors and tourists and relatives when they visit. And it just puts us once again ahead of the curve when we look at institutions in our city that can help make a difference in people's lives in terms of well-being, in terms of health, education, learning, employment. All those things I'd like to think that Qaumajuq has contributed to, and that the WAG has contributed to over the decades.
Perfect. Sandy, was there anything you wanted to add to that? Or?
Well, first of all, you have to go see the building. It is stunning. It is absolutely, totally stunning. And the main gallery, the two things that will really stick out when you see it. The first is when you walk in the front door and you see the vault, which is essentially a 3 or 4 story glass structure that runs in the center of the building and houses all of the carvings. And many of people here at this event have subscribed for shelves in that vault, so you have a pretty good idea what it's all about. But it's stunning. But it's when you walk into the main exhibition hall that you realize how unique this building is, and you see it's like being in the Arctic. It's just there are no straight, no corners. It's all curves. It's vast, and it just leaves you with this sense of the enormity of the space and the distance. And for those of us who have been to the Arctic, it's very, very reminiscent. Second thing I'd say is that part of this whole exercise was a complete revitalization of the main building of the WAG, and the area that's been established for studies for children to go in and study and learn about art is so much better than what was there before. And you go in and there's 20 pottery wheels sitting there being used by young children who are coming in from around the community. So the third thing I'd say is the WAG has become really accessible in the last number of years. My favorite event at the WAG in the last number of years was the time they constructed the skateboard venue in the main hall, and you walked in there, and my favorite moment is a picture of Art Morrow and Naomi Levine sitting in the middle of this room, surrounded by kids in baggy shorts down to their knees, and hanging onto their skateboards. That's what an art gallery can do. If it's on its toes and it understands the dynamic of the communities that they operate in, they can become everyone's place. And these skateboarding kids, there was a whole display of skateboarding art. So I think this is a big step in that direction. It's because what working with the Inuit community has done is also caused us to work with the other Indigenous communities, First Nations and Métis, and also with immigrant communities to Canada. A number of months ago, we had a wonderful show on Indo-Canadian art, which I thought was, again, a really, really interesting way to connect to one of our most important communities. So that's kind of what a well thought out, well supported, well run art gallery can do for a community.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. Stephen, I'll direct this one to you, maybe, if you don't mind, just based on your involvement with the WAG through the development of Qaumajuq. We saw the tagline, "Art is a Voice." What does that mean to you?
I guess you could say, and I don't think it's an exaggeration, that art, whether it's a film, a literary work, a painting, a drawing, a sculpture, or video, art is one of the most powerful and accessible tools, and one of the most universal tools we have to express ourselves, for us to communicate with each other, to nurture understanding, respect. I'm always amazed when a group of kids come through the WAG, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. They don't need to read the labels on the wall to often understand what's going on, what they're seeing. And we noticed that with one of the biggest contemporary Indigenous shows we did, Insurgents, Resurgents. Kids, the whole K-12 curriculum, learned a great deal about what's going on in Canada, what has gone on, what we need to do, where we are, how we can help through the art. So to have an institution where art is front and center, where we use it to inform, to explore, inspire, is a really exciting moment. And the tagline for the campaign was Art as a Voice, because the nice thing about Qaumajuq is different voices are coming out. There's a diversity of narratives, and we are doing our best to facilitate a much deeper, larger, broader forum for discussion, for dialogue, for understanding. And that allows us to make a difference in our community. And you know, it's within the education system, within the post-secondary system, but it's also for a tourist coming to Winnipeg, for a family member, for a long-time member. They come to the WAG, they learn something they didn't know, they're exposed to something they didn't know, and it changes them. It inspires them. It maybe compels them to make a difference in their neighborhood, in their school, at their workplace. This is, for me, the most hopeful part of this project, that the new museum model at the WAG and Qaumajuq allows us to kind of assess how we can be more useful in society, in the community, how we can nurture conversations, and how we can be at front and center. And I like what Sandy said about what's going on at the WAG right now, and that's a good test, because on the ground floor of this new cultural campus, and you have to think about this, the new center and the WAG, it's about 185,000 square feet. On the ground floor, you have shopping, so you have retail, you have a cafe, you have a theater, you have the visible vault, you have programming, you can just hang out. It's accessible, and it tells me that is one of the new models for the museum in the 21st century, is a space for everyone in the community.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm anxious to see if we can get Julie's voice here in the conversation.
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Nothing like keeping a couple hundred people waiting for 20 minutes. No big deal. Coming in like a diva.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us, Julie. But again, if I can, I'd love to direct a question towards you. Like, again, what excites you most about having Qaumajuq here in our community, and what does it mean to you?
I think that's a hard question to answer. I think for me, I've always seen Qaumajuq and the WAG as one thing. So I know that we're talking specifically about Qaumajuq, and I think that it's it's stunning. It's like the architecture is breathtaking. You know, the new exhibition is going to knock people's socks off because they're not actually going to know what hit them. And I think that they're going to be like, oh, Inuit art is this, but in fact, it's this explosion of things that people will be surprised and impressed by. But for me, it's about a synergy between the two different spaces. And I think that that's really important to kind of think through, especially as we did the naming of all the different sites and the WAG specifically in Anishinaabe-Moan. It's really important to kind of think of it as a united front. And I think that just what Stephen's saying as a cultural campus, as a place to kind of explore. And I think that people in Winnipeg really need it. And especially now, I think that there's just such a strong sense that we are in a cultural renaissance in Winnipeg. We have a strong Indigenous culture, and we also have the most incredible artists here. And so I think that, we're in such a unique position, and I keep getting seconded back to Toronto or brought over to, a different city in the country to come and speak to or do specific kind of projects. And the realization is, I notice that we just keep poaching us from Manitoba to do that work across the country and internationally. And I think that, the space has breathed new life into the collection that kind of sat, quietly in a corner downstairs and sometimes came to life within the physical space. And I think that what the new building allows us to do is to get excited and see the kind of nice conversations that are happening between Inuit, First Nations, and Métis artists across the country and globally. I know that we're focusing a lot on the idea of the North, but in fact, it's the circumpolar, and Canada sits in a big ring of that circumpolar with 7 other nations. And I think it's really important to start thinking about a kind of global conversation and putting Winnipeg in those global conversations, because we have the talent, I think we have the kind of grit that Winnipeg tends to have. But I think that we keep bringing more and more people here, the more and more excited they see the potential of what we have as a city and as a province more broadly.
Excellent. Love it, Julie. That was definitely worth the wait. So I'm glad to hear your voice on it. Sandy, I'll direct this next question if you don't mind. As a leader in our business community, we have learned, like, what have you learned on this journey to create Qaumajuq? And based on your learnings, what message do you have for other business leaders here today?
Well, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to give my pitch. It's not just a pitch about this project, but generally about the community. Anybody who's ever heard me speak about the city has heard me say that Winnipeg is essentially a collective act of will. There's no other reason that we sit here at the size we are with the assets that we have, except that the people in this community decided they wanted them. And maybe it's the isolation we've had historically, the weather, who knows? I mean, the weather, we all know. But for whatever reason, and you go back into the sands of time and right forward, generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans have taken the steps to make this community great. We have a football team because somebody wanted to have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We have the hockey team because people decided they wanted an arena. We have the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. We have the hospitals, and we have the Winnipeg Art Gallery, which is one of the oldest public art galleries in municipal art galleries in Canada, and was started by people who were here in the 1900s, early 1900s, 1920s, and basically, and that's why it's here. And every generation has stepped forward at a point in time and made their commitment, in a sense, to the community. And that's what's happening now, and that's what's happened for the last 10 or 15 years. You look at all of the developments in this community, and they've happened because people in this community decided they wanted to make a difference, they wanted to make it happen. And whether it's what's happened at the Assiniboine Park Conservancy or the Museum of Human Rights, the return of the Winnipeg Jets, the list goes on. This is another one. This is another really important community project that has lasting implications, beneficial implications for this community for generations to come. But it doesn't happen because somebody else is making it happen. It happens because the people in the city stand behind it and they support it. So I say to all the members of the Chambers of Commerce here who have yet to be canvassed, or who have been canvassed and are thinking about this, or who have made a donation but need to make a bigger donation, because we're still a few million shy of where we need to be on a major project. This is an opportunity to make a statement about the community. At the very least, if you don't have your name on one of the shelves in the vault, you're missing out on a legacy opportunity for your kids and your grandchildren. But there's so much that you can do to help make this work. And there's so many people in this community who have stood up already in support of this, and not just from Winnipeg, but people from outside of Winnipeg who understand the importance of it. So that's what I've relearned the lesson of Winnipeg, which is if we all pitch in and we all work together and we all decide that we want to make something happen, we can make the best things in the world right in this city. And in this kind of day and age where the world is much more interconnected, you're going to see many, many more examples of people going through Winnipeg to see the North. And this is going to be their gateway city. And this is a place that people are going to really talk a lot about. And one of the reasons they'll talk about it is because we have this absolutely extraordinary and totally unique center that explains the culture and the life in the North.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sandy. I can't help but love your passion and commitment to community citizenship. It's beautiful. Stephen, you and I were able to connect the other day, and I could clearly hear your love of this project. But I'd love to hear what some of the challenges for you in developing Qaumajuq.
Actually, I thought we just should have stopped with Sandy right there, because that was a perfect way, and we should just focus on that. But,
yes.
I was afraid I wouldn't get it in.
What challenges?
I will say that I love this question because there weren't any challenges. Yes, raising money, but when it's a cause you believe in, and when it's a cause that the community believes in, it's actually a privilege and a joy to do this. And I remember one of my Indigenous advisors, Jamie Wilson, saying, Stephen, you either are going to look at the hurdles and the challenges, or you are going to see the opportunities. And I would say every challenge turned into an opportunity, a way to move forward, to shift the conversation. I love what both Julie and Sandy said about how this project has changed the way. And from an infrastructure, from a physical plant, we have all new heating and cooling and chillers. So the WAG, it's a 50-year-old building, is like new renovated spaces. And what Julie said about how Qaumajuq has changed the WAG, literally how a museum does business, why we are here, the whole pedagogical shift, the indigenization, decolonization of an institution, it has given the WAG a new life. It has renewed a purpose, a responsibility, a mission, and I'm particularly grateful to know that our institution has responded specifically to the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in terms of what a museum has to be doing right now. And all of those things, I guess you could have said there were challenges there. But I'm pleased to say with an extraordinary team at the WAG, volunteer leadership, like Sandy and his team, also the Indigenous Advisory Council, which is co-chaired by Julie, those people that also come from way outside our city and our province have been right there beside me, encouraging, supporting, pushing, but also challenging us to do more, to go further, to go higher. And in the end, the fact that this is a chamber event, Winnipeggers will benefit. There's something in our city now. It's not just a building, it's not just a collection, it's a conversation, it's a dialogue, and the WAG will be leading it in many ways. And we're joining other very important institutions that are furthering reconciliation, understanding, supporting the economy, pushing tourism way up there, focusing on the north. It's exciting to be part of it. And as the director and CEO, I feel I've been given a new purpose, a new responsibility, and it is incredibly rewarding.
Amazing. This next question I'd like to direct to all three of you, but if you don't mind, Julie, if you could start us off, but how does Qaumajuq fit in with your future vision on Winnipeg?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, one, I want to say that one of the most, to go back to what Stephen's saying, I don't think we're joining people. I think we're leading. And I think that that's really important to kind of articulate, especially because we have a group of leaders that are listening to us. You know, we're leading in terms of the country. You know, reconciliation isn't the thing that person does because we built the building, it means X. It in fact is a long trajectory of building relationships over a long period of time of reciprocal and understanding. And I think that, you know, it's been a lot of hard work, and it's also been really rewarding work, just as Stephen has said. And the work continues. It doesn't just go away, you know, just because the building's built or a thing happens. And, you know, we can see that in other institutions across the country, you know, not to name any names, but there's definitely different struggles that we are seeing, you know, broadly, internationally and nationally. So I think that's important to note. I think the future for me, you know, looks a little bit different. And I would say, you know, it's led by people of color and Indigenous people, and us having strong voices at the table and leading those conversations. And you know, whether that means, you know, doing the really good work that Sandy said of like pitching, you know, why Winnipeg's important, but why is it important to me, or why is it important to somebody else that has been on the periphery, you know, or why do we think that this will shift our conversation in a particular way? And I think that, you know, that's what the power of art actually does. You know, you see that it can communicate a visual narrative that sometimes me as a talking head just can't get at you, you know, or, you know, somebody talks about something around residential school, and then you see somebody's work, and then you're brought to tears because you can feel that emotion in that physical work, you know. And I think that it's really important, and in that art leads that conversation, and it's not just a voice as the like caption says, but it's in fact an embodied knowledge. So every time we think about, you know, a particular moment in time, it marks that in a very specific way. And artists are innovators and leaders, and we have been doing this for millennia. And if we look at Indigenous people, you know, we have been innovating for a very long period of time. And not only that, but, you know, shifting the conversation and the groundwork for that. And I think that for me, that's what Qaumajuq and Binisan Abanawan will do for us. You know, it's just such an incredible spark. And it's this kind of spark that will continue to build and build and build. And I think that we're going to see that nationally and internationally. And that's what the future looks like, I think.
Excellent. Sandy, did you have any thoughts on how this applies to your vision on Winnipeg?
Well, I'd say make two quick comments. First of all, art does civilize people. When they talk about civilization, what they're really talking about is the artistic and cultural life that is developed in communities where people are making a living, but at the same time trying to create something that is bigger than themselves and bigger than their daily travails, and explains why they're here and who they are. And that's kind of what art does. And I'd say the second thing I'd say, and that's why I think we are this is such an important project, given that where we are in history at this point in time in history. But I would say this about Winnipeg. We are a remarkable city. We have been at the center of so much development in this country, whether it's the waves of immigration, the founding of this country. Indeed, when the fur traders came through and first connected with the indigenous peoples who lived here, and then they married and they became Métis. The Métis people were evolved, and we've had this remarkable history of connecting, and then we've had waves of immigrants from different parts of the world who come to this part, to Canada and to Winnipeg, because of the fact that it's a place where everybody kind of works and pitches together. We have bumps and grinds, and we all have different perspectives, but this is a city that really works. And I think the biggest challenge that we as a country face is in reconciling with our Indigenous peoples. We are at the center of that debate and that center of that process here in Winnipeg. I think we're doing far better at it than most people would give us credit for, but we have a long way to go. And having spent the time and the effort and the resources to construct Qaumajuq, how did I do in that, by the way? I thought I was getting closer to you, Julie. Is a huge step in that direction. You can see, I mean, as I said earlier on, you can see the progression from the zoo right through to the Museum of Human Rights. You can see the progression of this connection and this community, and it's something we should all be very proud of. And it is unique. I've lived in many places, been to many places. This is a very, very special community, and we should be very proud of it, and be very, very proud of our willingness to take on tough issues and to support our community. Excellent.
Thank you. Stephen, anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I'd like to second what Sandy and Julie have said. I think this is a chamber event. I think of organizations, businesses, both for-profit and non-profit. I'd like to think that what's happening at the WAG in terms of organizational chart, a strategic plan, a business plan, that there are examples here, there are models here that can help other organizations well outside the culture sector, that they could turn to us as leaders, as innovators, rethinking how we do business in an equitable, in a respectful way today. And the change that's going on across the country is extraordinary. What's happening in Winnipeg is something that I think we can take incredible pride and comfort in terms of leadership with reconciliation. I also feel this whole project has given the WAG new causes to rethink our plan in terms of sustainability, in terms of what is the value proposition. So what I would say to businesses that are even listening today and leaders, that what's happening at the WAG, what's happening at Qaumajuq is a 109-year-old institution making sure that it's sustainable, it's relevant, it's meaningful today, that we can stay in the black, that we can be productive, and that we can tell our stakeholders, our supporters, that it's a good investment, that art is really the cause of the people, and we're there for you.
Excellent. I love that we've already kind of touched upon and magnified the importance of reconciliation. So if I actually kind of maybe like to dig a little bit deeper, this next question I'd like to direct to Julie and Sandy, if that's okay. The Chamber is focusing on reconciliation this month in its programming. How does your work with Qaumajuq further reconciliation here in our city, and how do you think it helps us further?
Want to go first, Julie? You go first.
Make you do it. I was like, you go first, Sandy, and I'll follow up.
If you want me to, I'll go first. So look, I talked earlier about going through the building in the early stages as it was under construction, and taking people that I know from the north because of my association with the Northwest Company through and watching the reaction that they have to seeing the work of art. These are not old masters. This is not art that was produced 500 years ago. This is art that was produced in the last 75 to 100 years for the most part. And so the people who made that art are still very alive in the memories of the families in these communities. And when you go to see the art, you'll see that each community has its own style because the stone is different, and the way in which they adopt certain of the Sedna, for example, who's the goddess of the sea, has a different kind of perspective in different communities. So they can see their communities being represented. They can see their families. And the fact that people in the South care enough about their culture and appreciate the challenges that they've got and appreciate what they bring to our country is a very powerful message. And it's a message of understanding. The other thing is when you go through, you see the works of art. The works of art basically describe how people lived. You can see 10 different prints describing a caribou hunt, for example, in different ways, and you'll see from different communities, and you'll see how they did it. So it's not only a nice place to go and hang out. It's a really interesting thing to go and look at the various works of art and see how people's minds think, and the fact that we treat it with such respect is really important for those communities, because it's like any group of people that are different from other people. If you don't try and understand each other, you end up focusing on the differences. But if you try and understand each other, you realize pretty quickly there are a lot of commonalities, and that's what I think the WAG and its work is doing, and Qaumajuq will really further.
Julie?
It's now you, Julie.
I was like, you guys really want me to go? I think for me, reconciliation is relinquishing power. And I think that I couldn't stress this enough. And I think that it's about relinquishing your power and your position. And so when I think about what was the success, or what has been the success, is Stephen's willingness to relinquish power and let go and be okay to take leadership from different directions, and specifically our direction. And I think if you look at the TRC's calls to action, because that's in fact what they are, to call you to action, to do the things that need to get done, and not be the one not only just doing it or being the only person being called on, but in fact giving that position of power or that leadership position to the people that know how to lead and can lead from experience. And I think that, and I saw in the chat, also funds help. I saw there was a couple comments about reconciliations, also about giving to Indigenous organizations and making sure that they have those opportunities, 110%. I think that specifically because we're talking about the chambers, it's really, really important to not only have that support, but that continued support. And I think that thinking about how those the shift of power actually needs to happen in order for there to even be a conversation about reconciliation, never mind a moment of reconciliation, which in fact is what we're experiencing right now.
Amazing. Wow. What an amazing sentiment and testament to Stephen's leadership. So that's phenomenal. Stephen, this next one's for you. It is so much more than just a gallery. What are some of the activities and hands-on experiences guests can take part in? Okay,
that's getting to the fun part. But I just want to add on to what Julie and Sandy said. What's extraordinary and something that we can take a lot of strength in, that we've raised $65 million from individuals, organizations, governments across this country, across North America, 3 levels of government, the private sector, institutions, foundations, for this project, which tells me it gives me a great deal of hope in terms of what we can do. And so that investment, I just want to tell people listening in today and watching that watch your investment, because I believe there's going to be some big results, and they are small steps, and it's a lifelong journey. I'm happy. Let's say how Julie put it, in terms of the power share. You know, this project is easier when there are a diversity of people leading. And yes, I have to run the WAG, and I have to keep it on track and stable and sustainable. But the leadership of my board, of the Indigenous Advisory Circle, who are right there beside me, it has changed how we've moved this forward. But to your other question about what this is, it's much more than a gallery. And I can count on one hand the places in our city that are free, where you can be comfortable coming in, looking at art, shopping, having a cup of coffee, a meal, watching a film, relaxing, taking a course, doing a workshop, going to a lecture, bringing your kids, just staying, checking up on emails, reading. Right downtown, there are not that many places that are truly welcome for everyone. And to the individuals, to the people in our city that have never felt comfortable, welcome, or have never seen themselves in the WAG and in Qaumajuq, I believe this is an opportunity for us to change that, so that every Winnipegger feels welcome, feels safe, feels engaged, and actually feels ownership in this extraordinary project. And if that's the case, I think we could say that we are advancing and that we are doing something that's good. So the main floor, entirely free for everyone. Something for everyone. That's my hope that Qaumajuq will bring.
Phenomenal. And I'll close off with this final question for all of you. Why is it important to check out the space, and how can people get involved? So Julie, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I mean, just go see it as soon as like the pandemic is over and we're allowed in. I think I saw something yesterday that was positive that we might be opening. But I think that, you know, in terms of, you know, just what Stephen said, you know, walk around, explore the city. There's lots of arts and culture within that corridor section. You know, obviously I'm biased because the University of Winnipeg is right next door and all the bits and pieces. But I think that, you know, definitely come and see it. And the other incredible thing, which I'm not sure got mentioned at the first 20 minutes that I didn't get to hear, but, you know, we have a all Inuit team curating the inaugural exhibition, Inuit. It is all 4 regions of Inuit and Nanga, which I think is so incredibly important, because we tend to think about the North as this vast space that just exists somewhere north to us. But in fact, it's very localized with very specific histories to each region and each community. And I think that, you know, the curatorial team has done an incredible job of making sure that those voices are heard. And it will be such an incredible opportunity for people to get into that physical space, not only just to see the breathtaking architecture of it, but in fact, the exhibition with over 100 artists. They've worked so incredibly hard, and I cannot wait to actually celebrate. It's going to be almost a year, and I'm like, just like, you know, a bottle of wine in the new space just isn't cutting it. I need some people.
White wine.
Yeah.
Sandy, your thoughts on, you know, why it's so important for Winnipeggers to come and check out the space and how they
Look at well, I would say this: as soon as you can get in with this kind of weather, you want to take the kids somewhere inside that they can run around a little bit. Take them there, and you'll enjoy it yourself. But because we all know in Winnipeg in the winter you need places to go with kids. But I think that when you go and have a look at everything that's there, you'll be really, really impressed. And if you also, you know, that's participating, but we need your money. So we still have Stephen said we had 65 million, but maybe a bit more than that, but we got to get to 70, and the last money is always the hardest to raise. So we need everyone's help, and we need everyone to really, we have to make this a real success. And part of it is making sure that the WAG is fully funded on this project, I mean, it's covered now because it's because of debt that's there. But we've got to make sure we leave this facility in completely pristine financial shape, and that's something the business community can help. So dig in.
I want Sandy on my team. I was like, I just like it. I was just like, let's do Sandy. I was just like, literally, it's just like, come on, folks.
Someone's got to ask.
No, I love it. I love the
I love
emboldened
it.
call, Sandy. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, I like it.
Stephen, my friend, you have the final word on why is it important to check out the space and how can people get involved?
Well, at the highest level, it's your civic duty to know what amazing things you have in your city. But not only is it's unique in the world, it's in our city, it's accessible, it's fun. And so for anyone who's maybe walked by, driven by, cycled by, been in the bus and said, you know what, not for me, I'm not sure, give us a chance and let me know how that experience was. Because the diversity of artwork, Inuit, First Nations, Métis, Canadian, European, American, the diversity of generations of media that's on display at your fingertips for you. The cool thing is learning can be incredibly enlightening, fun, and when you learn about others, other places, other ideas and perspectives through art, it comes pretty natural. And I think here's a chance for the WAG in Canada to be one of the leaders in terms of what a museum can be. And I'm just saying we cannot wait to open our doors because we are planning, just so you know, a 365-day-long celebration for the launch of Qaumajuq. And there are events going to be every day of the week. Inawa, which is an extraordinary exhibition curated by 4 Inuit curators, never been done in the world to this scale. It's going to be on for several months. You'll have to come back many times to take it in. And of course, that's the whole point. Art should really be part of your lives. It'll make a difference. And I know that. And I promise you that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. Well, that is all the time we have for today's Fireside Chat. Thank you all so much for joining us today and adding your voices to this beautiful project. Today's conversation was a great introduction to such an important piece of our city. I personally look forward to seeing Qaumajuq, as I'm sure our members are as well. Before we end today, I just wanted to share that there are 2 other events we have coming up this month. As I mentioned earlier, our programming this month will focus on truth and reconciliation and how we can continue to grow and expand our knowledge. On February 18th, we have our next membership luncheon with Tim Daniels, Chief Operating Officer of Treaty 1 Development Corporation. Tim will go into details of Capillon Barracks' final plans and what this 160 acres of land will mean for our Winnipeg and Winnipeg business community. The following day, on February 19th, co-hosted with the WTC Winnipeg and led by Jessica Dumas, we'll be hosting a webinar titled, What is the Truth and Reconciliation Roadmap? Jessica will share insights on how to use the document and have a panel discussion with local organizations who have successfully used the roadmap. Register for both events at winnipeg-chamber.com. Lastly, I also want to remind you to send in your applications and nominations for our Spirit Awards on May 27th. Applications close on March 4th, so be sure to visit our website at winnipeg-chamber.com to apply, nominate someone, or to learn more. We look forward to seeing you and your applications. That concludes today's program. Thank you all for coming today, and thank you again to our wonderful panel for today's conversation. Have a great rest of your day and stay safe.